This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Taylor Riggs in San Francisco. One more jolt for WeWork. The new company's leaders told staff that job cuts are coming as soon as this month. WeWork's cost-cutting efforts would include layoffs. That's according to attendees of a closed meeting. This comes the same week that the company officially pressed pause on its IPO efforts. Here to discuss this and other top stories of the week, John Maeda of Publicis Sapient, and here in San Francisco with me, Bloomberg Technologies, Alistair Barr. Alistair, let me start with you with WeWork. Are the layoffs enough?
I think there's a lot more to be done. I think there's a big question mark in a lot of investors' minds about WeWork's business model in general. It's a very tough business to be in when you're spending a lot to lease a lot of buildings on long-term contracts and leasing them out on very, very short-term contracts, where that makes the company very, very exposed to an economic downturn. There's a lot of economic concerns. So I think 2,000 out of, I think, a total of about 12,000. I imagine that the whole goal, right, is to make people relatively comfortable, get the IPO done, and get access to a lot of this other financing that is contingent on doing the IPO.
John, let me bring you in here. What do you make of the company selling off or looking to sell off some of its investments in Wing, selling off a private jet, for example? Is that also another step in the right direction?
Well, I think it's just this general reckoning moment in tech where the ethics question has to be asked. There's a great company, Maeda. If they're let go of this WeWork world, it's pretty sad because some great ideas are living inside that thing. For it to fall apart would be pretty bad.
John, how is WeWork's balance sheet? I've heard from a lot of analysts that they can try to hold off from fundraising until mid-2020 or so. Do you agree?
I think the fact that it's basically a real estate company hides the fact that it's not a technology company. So back to the previous segment you had before, if you try to say you're a tech company but you're not, you'll get bit.
You know, Alistair, one thing that struck me when they were looking at selling off some of the investments in Wing, that seemed to actually align with their core strategy. Does this feel like a fire sale, or are they doing a right job discriminating about what assets to sell off and what assets to keep?
I think any time that a company has to announce that it's going to sell a bunch of things, that's never a good idea. Ideally, you want to do that subtly, and you want to get people who really want to buy those entities. I think it is true that the company is trying to focus on the core short-term space rental company, and it might not be a tech company, but there could be a real estate business that might work in there somewhere.
John, what do you want to see next from WeWork?
I would love for companies like WeWork to emerge that fill in that problem where eventually higher education will fall apart and there's no way for younger people to get started. So I think WeWork was a good idea to get young people together, give them capital, give them space. If those kind of places go away, I think it's going to be very hard for the next generation to succeed.
John, I want to talk to you next about Facebook. And there were the leaked recordings earlier from The Verge that came out about Mark Zuckerberg talking about an Elizabeth Warren presidency. In your opinion, John, how much of a threat to Facebook is an Elizabeth Warren presidency?
Well, I think that we're just asking questions about Facebook itself right now. It's kind of like a casino for emotions. The fact that it can control how we feel. There was that research paper that Facebook released a while ago that's kind of forgotten, where researchers discovered that it's possible to change valence, change how you feel, depending on what appears in your feed. So the fact that this technology can be used to manipulate everyone's emotions is quite powerful. And so regardless of who the candidate will end up being, it's a technology that has to reckon with the ethical concerns.
Alistair, any sense that these extra compliance costs, extra litigation costs from Facebook's end to fight a potential antitrust deal could really impact their bottom line?
I think investors will discount that, even if Facebook spends, I'm just making it up a number here, if they spend $1 billion defending that type of thing over the next few years, investors I don't think will care about that. What they really want to know is whether what Facebook does that makes so much money, which is targeted advertising with as John said, with this amazingly powerful platform, will that remain? And I think a Warren presidency, if that ever happens, could be a threat to that.
John, is there a real case to be made for Facebook to be broken up on antitrust concerns?
I think definitely every technology company, once you sort of like unravel it at the big scale, the big tech companies, what are they? Are they big Las Vegas class casinos that can control all of our emotions and what we read when we feel about things? If you look at it that way, there's a definite problem, and the problem has to get addressed somehow. But is Facebook the only problem? I don't think so.
Well, another problem that Facebook is facing, Alistair, that you brought up was Libra and their cryptocurrency project. And now PayPal has confirmed that they're backing out of that agreement. What does that mean for the future of that project?
So there are 28 original members. I keep calling them members, but actually they signed a contract that said, we'll take part and then we'll join fully a bit later on. And that the real date to watch is October the 14th, which is when the first kind of council meeting of this group gets going. And I think then people will actually be signing contracts, and then soon after that they'll have to hand over actually $10 million. And that's so PayPal pulling out is a blow at the moment. From what we can tell, we haven't seen any of the other 27 companies pulling out yet, but we'll have to see.
John, it was the battle of the hardware phones again this week. Microsoft came out and sort of launched a new foldable phone. I have to ask, why is it smart, I guess, for Microsoft to be getting back into the smartphone business?
Well, what's neat about the devices today is you're not sure what they are. Remember when the big phone tablets were called phablets? So I call this like a folding phablet with a PH, folding phablet. And the reality is that anything could be a phone, just attach headphones to your tablet, etc. So I think it's a good thing that Microsoft is coming in not as a phone, but another device that you can carry with you in your purse or in your pocket or whatever. And it's a new way to think about how you live with computing. And you expect Apple to do that, but they didn't.
Thank you, John Maeda, a publicist, Sapien, and Bloomberg Technologies, Alistair Barr. Thank you both for joining me.